As in most projects, you have to make a mess in order to build something. AutoCAD is the same way. In order to create our designs, we will have to make objects that ultimately we don't want. So most of the time, these types of objects come in the form of like construction lines and other drawing aids. Whatever they are, they need to go away. So to do this, we use the erase command. So let's open up a file, browse to this chapters folder, and let's open up the Architectural Annotation Scaling and Multi-Leaders example file. So it's a good one because it has a lot of stuff in here that we can erase. So erasing is actually very simple. Find an object, select it, and then click the erase button. Or you can select it and then click your delete button. You can also go in the opposite direction. Start the erase command, which is found here in the Home tab on the Modify panel. Start the Erase tab, and then pick all of the objects that you want to erase. Once you have selected everything, press the Enter key, and they're gone. You can also get to the Erase command by typing in the word Erase, or just the letter E. Now, if you accidentally erase something, type in Oops, and I'm not joking, OOPS. That will undelete or unerase the last object that you erased. So that's a handy object. So if you accidentally erase or delete something, type in Oops. A good CAD tip that I can give you is to keep your work area neat and tidy. That's the idea about this next video that we're going to look at here. We're going to use the Delete Duplicates command. The Delete Duplicates command is also known as the Overkill command. And originally it comes from an add-on tool pack called the Express Tools that used to be a big extra feature you had to pay for in AutoCAD. But now a lot of those are just built into regular AutoCAD. Now Overkill will delete duplicate objects, merge polylines, and get rid of messy line work. Let's open up an example file. Go to Open Files. Go to this chapter for your files, and let's open up the Architectural Annotation Scaling and Multi-Leaders drawing file. Now there are a lot of objects in this drawing. To run the Delete Duplicates file, just type in Overkill, and then you select your objects. This is one of those types of commands that you're not really going to see what happens in the background. So you select your objects, and then you right-click, and now your options come up. You really use the Delete Duplicate objects the majority of the time to delete objects that are right on top of each other. That happens. Sometimes you copy paste, or you just copy things, or you insert blocks multiple times accidentally. You get line work on top of each other. It happens. So this will help you to clean that up, reduce your file size, and get things out of it. You can tell the Delete Duplicates Objects command to ignore specific object properties, and you just click on those lists right here. So ignore the color, ignore the layer. We don't care about that. Or you can be very specific and say, yes, pay attention to these items. I want everything that's a different color to go away. Because a lot of times, if you're working, for example, like I do in civil design, we design a roadway. And a lot of times we'll lay out the center line of the road first, and then we'll offset that to create our edge of pavement. And then from the edge of pavement, we need the curb lines. And then a lot of times we'll have to hatch pattern the pavement roadway itself. And so a lot of times doing that can create duplicate lines right on top of each other in different layers. Sometimes you need to get rid of those lines, and you may want to isolate them by color or by layer or line type. And you can say, yes, get rid of those. Other options that you have here are to optimize segments within polylines. You can ignore them, or you can not, or you can break them. You can combine collinear objects. So sort of like that join polyline command that we used to use in the polyline edit. This can do that for you as well. So it'll do a lot of different things. The tolerance controls the precision with which Overkill makes numeric comparisons. Essentially, this value is 0. So that means that the two objects being compared must match before Overkill modifies or deletes one of them. So for example, if I change this all the way to 0, that means they have to be exactly the same length. If they're exactly the same length, all right, get rid of one of them. Or you can put in a tolerance. You can say, if they're 1/10 of a unit in size and difference, that's okay. That's enough to get rid of one of them. And of course, I've gone over the ignore object properties. It just ignores that object it starts off with the tolerance here, and it says, oh wait, these two lines are a little bit different in length, okay, but they're a different color. So now just ignore the color and delete the one anyway. And you go on for all of these different settings. So when you go to the optimized segments within polylines, to get more specific here, when you select these, the individual lines and arc segments within the selected polylines are examined by AutoCAD, and any duplicate vertices or segments are removed. And that happens sometimes when you make or edit a polyline, or if you do a fillet or some other different type of modifications to it, it will happen. Also, Overkill compares the individual polyline segments with completely separate line and arc segments. So if a polyline segment duplicates a line or an individual arc object, one of them then will be deleted. If this option here is not selected, then polylines are compared as discrete objects, and two sub-options here are not available. Of course, this will combine them, etc. So when you click OK, and I will press the F2 button, and it tells me what I did. Nothing was deleted, and 4 overlapping objects were selected after it found 38 individual objects that were selected. So nothing met my criteria in this case. So the overkill command, or the delete duplicates, is something that you're going to want to do after you've already done a lot of work in your file. Or once your file is complete, maybe you're sending it to someone, you can use the delete duplicate. You can actually select just a small portion as I did here, or you can select the entire file if you'd like. So this isn't something that you're going to use all the time, but I did want to show it to you to help you clean up your drawings, because a lot of times when we first start off, we do duplicate our line work accidentally, inadvertently, just because we're not used to working with it. So if you find you're snapping to something that doesn't look like it's there, but yet it's there, try the delete duplicate function, and maybe it'll help clean things up a little bit. The ability to move and copy objects with ease is one of the reasons CAD replaced board drafting years ago. These tasks are not easy to do on a drawing board, but they're extremely easy to do in AutoCAD. Move and copy work exactly the same way, but with two differences. The copy command leaves the original object alone, and it keeps repeating itself. Let's open up a file to take a look at these two commands. Let's open up the Architectural Annotation Scaling and Multi-Liters Drawing example file. In this file, we have a cross-sectional or a sectional elevation view of a stairway, and we have different views within it. Now, to move an object, you start the move command first, of course, and you type in the word move. That will start the command. Or you can type in just the letter M, or you can come up to the ribbon. Go to the Home tab, go to the Modify panel, and click on the Move command. Once you've started your command, find an object, select it, right-click, and now you have to pick a displacement point. A displacement point is just the point where you grab it. So I'm going to click right here, and then I am able to move. This dashed line gives you an idea, it's a visual aid, of where you're going to put your new object at. So when I move my mouse, it moves where I'm going to put my object. Left click again, and that's exactly where it will go. Pretty simple. So just remember, the base point is the place where you grab the object from, or it's a displacement point. It could be a point on the object or any other point in the drawing. So if I start the move command again, select the text, return or right click. Before I snapped onto the insertion point for this text. One thing that you might really want to do is grab the insertion point of this leader arrowhead. So I'm going to snap to that point, and then I'm going to type in NEA for near, press return, and just snap it to right there on top of our roof. So that's the move command, essentially. You can also select your object, right click, you can pick a base point or displacement point from anywhere in the drawing. So I can pick from way over here, and it still moves around. Now also keep in mind that I can move more than one object at a time. Let's say I want to move this section here of this roof. Right click, select everything, return, pick my displacement point, and if I turn on my ortho, this forces my movements to my orthogonal projections, left and right horizontal, up and down vertical. So I can move this now I can either just pick a point or I can give it an exact distance. Let's say I need to move this up 100 units. I can type in 100, press enter. And now my roof part is 100 units up higher than what it used to be. So you can pick points or you can type in absolute direction, for a distance. Now let's look at the copy command. The copy command works exactly the same way when you select and place your objects. Now to start the copy command, again, just like everything in AutoCAD, it has a multitude amount of ways to start it. You can type in the word copy. You can type in the letters CO for copy. Or you can come up to your ribbon, go to the Home tab, Modify panel, go to the copy command. Then you select your objects, just like you would in the Move command. Press Return, pick a point on there, and then move it. Now, when you execute the copy command, you can see in the top right-hand corner of my crosshairs is a little glyph. That's telling you that you're using the copy command. So if you forget what command you're in, that's there. So just like with the Move command, I can type in an absolute distance. So I want to move or copy, in this case, my roof back down 100 units. And with the copy command, you can see here that I can Many times while working in AutoCAD, you will have the need to change the angular position of an object. Now, it could be the position of a house on a lot, a chair in a room, or anything. Maybe even a gear needs to be rotated in your drawing, just a certain way. Now, there are many reasons to need to rotate an object, and AutoCAD is very specific on how it rotates objects. So let's open up an example file. Go to Open Files, go to this chapter's project folder, and open up the Rotation Examples drawing file. Here I have drawn in a few lines at specific angles, and some of those angles have been labeled. Now, as you might have expected, you can type in the word rotate to get to the rotate command. You can also type in RO for rotate, not R. R is a redraw. That's kind of like a refreshing of your screen. So RO is the command. Now, if you go to the ribbon, you go to the Home tab, to the Modify panel, and you click on the Rotate command right here. Now remember, when you go to the ribbon, if you're not sure what each command is, just move your mouse cursor right over the top of it, and it will tell you what the command is. And if you hold it there for another second or two, it'll give you a tooltip. It'll sort of give you an explanation of how things work. Okay, so once we start the Rotate command, in any way that you want to, you select your objects that you want to rotate. You can pick one or you can pick multiple. Then you press Enter once your selection is finished. Now you need to select a point of rotation. Now this point will be the pivot point for your objects to be rotated around. So if you're rotating a wheel and you want to rotate it about the center of the wheel, make sure you click on that center of that circle for the wheel. I'm going to pick this endpoint right here, the vertice or vertex of this angle. Now the second point you select determines the angle amount you are rotating. Right now my ortho is turned on, so it's locking me in to a 90-degree rotation. I'm going to turn that off. Now I can freely rotate my objects at any angle I'd like. I can pick a point somewhere, or I can type in the rotation angle that I want to use. Now remember, when you rotate an object, 0 starts off to the right on a horizontal line, or the east direction. Any degree of the angle that I type in comes up from there. So this is 0. This is a 15 degrees, 60 degrees. This would be a 90-degree rotation. So I'm going to type in 45 degrees. And there we go. So I rotated these objects 45 degrees. I didn't rotate them to a 45-degree angle, but I rotated them 45 degrees. The angle of rotation is based off the horizon or due east to the right of your screen. Now your angle starts horizontally out from that base point and goes up from there. I'm going to undo this, put them back to where they were. If we look at these lines again here on the right, imagine that I need to rotate the line at 15 degrees, that's this line, but I need it to be at the 90 degrees. Now I could do the math, 90 degrees minus this 15 degrees and get 75. So if I start the rotation command, select my object, press enter, pick my vertex, make sure ortho is turned off. See, if I type in 90 degrees, it's going to rotate it 90 degrees and it's going to look like this. But if I want that line to be at 90 degrees, then I have to do the math. So I'm going to type in 75 and it puts my line right at 90 degrees. I'm going to undo that again. I'm going to show you a little trick. Start your rotate command, press enter, select your object, press enter again, pick your base point. Now, let's say I want my angle of rotation not to reference from the 0, but I want it to actually reference from my line itself. Well, notice here that we have a couple of options, copy and reference. So if I type in R for reference, I have to pick my rotation point again, and then I pick my reference point, which is going to be the end of this line. So now, when I rotate my angle, it starts from this line that I've just created. And now I can bring it all the way up to the top. So that sometimes will make things easier for you to rotate. But if I type in 90 degrees, again, it's going to rotate 90 degrees. But now in this case, if I turn my ortho back on, it's going to pull it all the way up to the top at a 90-degree angle. So that's a couple of little tricks that you can use when rotating. You can use that reference. I use that reference option in the rotate command quite often. Now I want to show you the copy option in the rotate command. So you start the rotate command, select your line, press return, pick your base point. I'm going to turn off my ortho, and I'm going to select the copy option. I'm going to type in the letter C, press return. Now, if you want to use the copy option, you have to do that first, before you use the reference option. Once you start the reference option, size is relative, and so is scale. And sometimes you need an object to be bigger or a little bit smaller. In order to do that, you use the scale command. The scale command will change the size of an object or objects according to a scale factor. That factor can be any type of positive and non-zero number. Now you can scale something by a factor of 2 or by a factor of 0.5. Well, let's open up a file to work with. Click on the Open Files and go to the Scale Examples file. Now here I have just a couple of shapes. They're just squares and rectangles. Now you start the scale command in a couple of different ways. Type in the word scale. Type in the keystroke S and C for scale. S is the stretch command. We don't want that. Or you can go to the Home tab on the ribbon, go to the Modify panel, and go to the Scale command. So once you start the command, you select the objects. You can use a crossing window. You can select them one at a time, however you want, just your normal selections. Once you've selected everything, press the return key. And now you have to pick a reference point. First, I'm going to pick just this corner. Notice the glyph in my upper right-hand corner of my crosshairs. That's the scale glyph. It lets you know you're using the scale command. Now, the second point that AutoCAD is asking for will scale the object by the number of units your line is long. So you can see here on my little prompt, it says ortho is 24.1120. So that's stretched over from my first point all the way over this far. And that's the number of units. So it's going to scale this 26 times right at the moment. So it's going to be 26 times bigger. And you can see a little bit of a preview. And I'll zoom out a little bit to get a better idea. And that line is the absolute value of the length for the scale factor. So if I move to the right or if I move to the left, it doesn't matter. The line is just getting longer, so my scale factor is getting bigger. Now you can't make things smaller by just picking another point. because in order to be smaller, your scale factor has to be less than 1. So if I want this object to be 2 times as big as it was, I just type in the number 2 and press enter. So I've doubled the size of my box. I'm going to undo this. So we're back to where we were. Now, if I want this to be smaller, start the scale command, press enter, select my objects, press enter again, pick my reference point, and then if I want it to be smaller, my scale factor has to be greater than 0, but less than 1. So if I want to cut this thing in half, I'll type in 0.5. And scale is a matter of reference. It's relative. It doesn't require any specific types of units. So I'm not telling it to scale this up by ½ an inch or ½ a meter. I'm just telling it to scale it by a percentage compared to its original size. So if you want to keep the original object that you're scaling, start the scale command, select your objects, press return, pick your reference point. Now you see here we have options. Type in the letter C to copy it. And now I'm going to make this twice as big. So I have my box that's twice as big and then my original box as it was before. Now here's a trick that I've used several times, and I'm going to use it to divide this box into thirds. So let's say I need 3 sections inside this box. There's a lot of different ways you can do that, but here's one way you can do that using the scale command. Type in scale, press enter, pick that top line, press enter again. I'm going to pick this point. Now, since I want this to be divided up into thirds, I'm going to use a scale factor of 1/3. But first, I'm going to use my copy command to make sure my old line stays there. And I'm going to type in 1/3. That's 1/3. When you're scaling, you can use fractions for your values. So this will scale it at 1/3. Press return. I didn't see anything, right, because I used the copy command. I left that line there. But if I select it, see there's that little bitty line that's right there. I'll move this out of the way, and you can see that. Now I'm going to use the copy command. I'm going to select this object. And there we go. I've divided that box into 3 equal parts. I also used the copy and move commands just to give you an idea. I could have scaled this way, just typed in 1/3 and left the line there so that you could see it, and then copied it, and then I can grip edit this line work and just stretch it back. That's definitely one way that you can divide something up along a line. So if you need to divide it up into half, you just type in 1/2, 1/2 or 1/5, etc. So the scale factor can be used to make things bigger, to make things smaller, or to help you with some bit of drafting trickery. Sometimes in AutoCAD, we need to make an existing object shorter or longer. Sometimes it's one or it's multiple objects. They need to be stretched. To do this in AutoCAD, we can use the stretch command. Let's open up an example file. Let's look at the stretch examples drawing file. Here I have a line, an oval, and then a little bracket. So to start the stretch command, type in the word stretch, or you can just type in the letter S for stretch. You can also find the stretch command here on the Home tab, on the Modify panel, on your ribbon. Now, what you do with the stretch command is that you need to essentially move the vertices of an object. So you start off by selecting with the crossing window an object, press enter, pick your base point, and then pick a displacement point. So you can see here I made the object shorter, or I can make it longer. Now the stretch command essentially is moving the vertices of an object. That means that if you select an object by picking it, or if the object is completely enclosed in your crossing window selection, then the entire object will move. So if I start the stretch command and I select the entire line, press enter, pick my base point, my whole line is being stretched. Now my ortho command was on there, so it's locking the stretch to a vertical and horizontal direction. But if I turn it off, start the stretch command, select my objects, pick my base point, You can see here that I'm stretching it in all sorts of different directions. So you can use the stretch command as a kind of rotate. You can use it to move an object. You can use it for a lot of different things. Now, selecting objects to be stretched can be quite tricky because of how the command works. Now, most editing commands need you to pick the entire object, so it's easy to get your selection right. But in the stretch command, it's not so easy because you're really moving the vertices. And the vertices could be an endpoint, a midpoint, point of intersection, center point of a circle or arc, etc. So you're moving those vertice points, not necessarily the object itself. So let me show you what happens when you stretch this object here. I'm going to pick these objects here, and you can see as I move my crossing selection window over, the objects I'm selecting become highlighted. So I crossed through and picked up this arc, these two lines, and this circle. I'm going to turn my ortho command back on. I right click and I pick my displacement point, and now I stretch. See, that's really cool. That's really hard to do in board drafting, and this is another tool that AutoCAD is superior to than a board drawing. So you note that when I started my stretch command, this is what I selected. And I only moved the vertice of the endpoints for this line, for this arc, same here. I also grabbed the center point, or this entire circle and this entire arc. So all of these objects are moving together or being stretched together relative to each other. And if I were to keep going, it would give me an object that looked like that. Undo this, put it back together. Now I can select these objects, and then I can unselect an object from my set. If I hold down the Shift key, and I select that circle, it's removed from my selection set. So I right click, pick my base point, and now I can move this end of this bracket, offset it from this hole that's going to be there. I can do the same thing here. Stretch that. I can just stretch the bottom part of it. And that allows you to make that little cutout larger and in a different position. One last thing I want to go over with the stretch command. There are some objects that can't be stretched, such as circles. If I try to stretch this circle, all it's going to do is move it. And that's only if I grab the center point, which you can't really see there. That's because a circle really doesn't have any vertice points. It does have these quadrant grips, but you move it from the center of the circle. So keep that in mind. Another object is an ellipse, which is what I have right here. That's because its properties are almost identical to that of a circle, as you can see here. So just keep those things in mind. I can change the circle if you do need to sort of stretch it through grips. Grab the point and kind of stretch it that way. A circle works the same way. So if I need to make the circle a little bigger, I can do that through the grips, but not the stretch command. The offset command is probably one of my most used commands. It's extremely useful, and it allows me to create a lot of different things, specifically new concentric circles, parallel lines, and parallel curves. And I work a lot in civil engineering, so I do a lot of roadway layout, a lot of lot lines for residential development. And so a lot of these lines are often parallel to each other. And when I do a lot of pipe work, my pipes are often parallel to each other. So the offset command is something that I do every day, very often. Now you can use the offset command to offset an object at a very specific distance or through to a very specific point. So let's try it out. Let's open up a file. Let's look at the offset examples file. Now here we have a couple of little examples of some sort of thing that I might do on my day-to-day job. Here I have a center line of a road that's been laid out already for me, and a couple of lots for buildings, for homes. Also here we have some contour lines, probably for a lake since it's colored blue. Now we can use the offset command to add new contour lines to this pond. First we start by starting the offset command. Type in the word offset, or type in the letter O for offset. Or you can go up to the Home tab on the ribbon, go to the Modify panel, and then go to the offset command. Either way, it starts off the same way. First of all, you want to type in a distance. In this case, I'm going to type in 20. Press return. Now let's select the object to offset. I'm going to zoom in, pan around, and select this line right here. Now when you start this part, after you select the line, it starts right into the offset command. So you can see a little preview of where that new line is going to go. And I'm going to offset this line that I've selected by 20 units, either on the inside or on the outside of the line. Let me zoom in here a little bit closer. You can even see as I move my crosshairs around that I get that little dimension there that AutoCAD is reminding me that, hey, you're offsetting this 20 units. And you get that little preview. Where the new line is going to be created relative to your offset line, the original line, by where you position your mouse according to that original line. So whichever side of the line you put it on, that's where it's going to go. So once you have your cursor in position, left click. And you have created a new line offset at 20 units. So wherever I measure, if I measure an exact perpendicular distance from here to here, I am going to have two perfectly offset parallel lines that are 20 units apart all the way around. And it's actually that simple. So maybe you don't want to offset by a specific distance, but want the new line to pass through a specific point. So let's say you don't know what that distance is. You can do a couple of things. You can measure it, you can do the math, whatever it is you need to do, or you can guess, and then you can type in the distance. Well, offset command has an option. So for example, let's scroll up to this little roadway. We have the center line, we have the lot lines. Let's say we want to put a new right-of-way line that parallels the center line, but matches up with the front of these lots. I don't know what that distance is. So I'm going to start the offset command, press return, and you can see here that I have different options. Now these three options allow me to do different things. One is the layer. This way I can offset my new object and put it on a specific layer, which is actually a very nice thing because a lot of times I don't want it to go to the layer. It's kind of like doing a copy command. You can see here when we did our contour line, it copied that old one. It left it on the same layer. So I'm going to change the layer, type in L. I can say current or source. So the source is the default setting for their offset command. And the source just means it's going to match the object that you're offsetting. I'm going to switch it to current because currently I'm on the roadway and I'm going to make this a roadway layer. Okay, so now when I create this, it won't be this red center line. It'll be a magenta colored line. And I can also pick an erase button. If I pick the erase option, which in this case I don't want to do, it will erase the original line and only create the new one. But now I want to offset through. So I type in T for through. I select my object to offset, which is my center line. And remember before I had to type in a distance? Well, you can see here now, I can still type in that distance. So I can kind of eyeball it and say, yeah, that looks about right. 80 feet or something. Or in this case, it looks like it's going to be more like 30. But that's not what I want to do. I just want to snap right to this point. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to snap to this endpoint. And there it is. So I offset this center line 30 units because I just used the through option and I put it to the current layer. Now if I offset again, if I just press enter, it'll default back to that through. Select this line, pick my other object, and there we go. Now I have my little roadway. So you can see the offset command is very useful, very quick, very easy to do. It can help you to create a lot of different things, especially if they're long parallel objects. You can offset a line, a polyline, polygon, an arc, or a circle. You can do all of those sorts of things. Now, if you're creating objects that are symmetrical, then you can save a lot of time and effort by only drawing half of them. That's where the mirror command comes in, and it can be very handy. So let's open up a file, and let's look at the mirror examples file. Here we have two objects that I've already started drawing for us. One is this hex head bolt, it's a shoulder bolt, and the other one that I have here is half of a vase drawn in profile. So we need to start the mirror command before we can get going. Type in the word mirror, or you can type in the letters MI. Not just the letter M is the move command. So you want MI for mirror. Then you can come up to the Home tab on the ribbon, go to the Modify panel, and then go to the mirror command. Start the command. Select your objects. We're going to select this half of the vase. You can pick one object or you can pick multiple objects. Press return. And now you have to create a mirror line. We have to pick 2 points. These points will create this imaginary line that your objects are going to be mirrored on. In the case of the vase, I've put a construction line drawn in here already to help us out so we can see what we're doing. But you don't have to have a physical line drawn in there. Sometimes, though, it does help you to get a better understanding of the process and to help better define exactly where you need to mirror about. So in this case, I'm going to start off by selecting the top of the line. And as you can see here, I have a bit of a preview. And you can kind of see how this is all going to come into place. So I have my mirror line, which is that dash line. I just have to pick a second point. So you can use the mirror command actually to be a sort of a rotate command in a way. And I've done that before. With this little preview, I'm going to now pick somewhere else along this line. And now you're given an option. If I want to erase the source object, that means this right half that I've selected will be gone. It'll delete that. I'm going to say no because I want to create my entire vase and make sure it's symmetrical. Just press enter. And here you go. Now if I select that line and I delete it, you can get a better look. There's a vase and it's completely symmetrical. Now if I start the mirror line command again and I select one of these halves, press enter, I can pick anywhere that I want. And it's going to mirror my object for me. Now remember, I can turn on ortho, and that will help me to lock in my line work to be completely vertical. And this will give you a few different options. So let's take a look here at this shoulder bolt or screw. This time I'm going to use the erase option. So I want the head of the bolt to be over here on the left. So I'm going to start the mirror command. I'm going to select all of these objects, press return, and I'm going to just pick the midpoint of this line, and my ortho is on right now, so I can just come straight up like this, and I'm going to go up to the top. And now I'm going to tell it yes to erase the source objects. And there you go. So I did a kind of rotation with the mirror command. I just flipped it over. So my old bolt is gone, and now my new one is facing the proper way. Many times in your drawings, you're going to need lines to get a little bit bigger or a little bit shorter. You will also need your lines to abut up to other lines. That's where the trim and the extend commands come in. Now, I've combined these two commands together because they're practically identical in function. In fact, with a little bit of keyboard magic, you can even trim or extend with either the trim or extend button. So the trim command will shorten your objects by cutting away the parts you don't want along a cutting line. Now the extend command will lengthen your lines up to an extension line. So let's open up a file. Let's look at the trim extend example files. Here I have just a series of different lines to kind of demonstrate to you how these are going to function. I have a series of concentric circles with 2 lines that are parallel passing through them. And here I have just a series of vertical and horizontal lines. Now to start the trim command, you just type in trim, or you type in the letters T and R. Don't type in the letter T, that'll be text. TR for trim. You can also find it here in the ribbon. If you come up to your Home tab on the Modify panel, this is the trim command. The flyout here will get you to either the trim or the extend. We're going to look at the trim first. It's quite simple. You start the command and now you select your cutting line. That's the line that all of your other lines are going to be cut by. Now you can pick more than one line. In fact, I can pick all of the lines if I really want to. I don't want to right now, I want to keep it simple. So select your cutting line. Once you're finished, press return. Now you select the part of the line that you want to go away. Now it's going to go away wherever it starts from up to the point where it touches that line. So this part here is going to go away. When I move my mouse over, you get a little bit of a preview. You see the red X, that means it's going to delete it or close it or get rid of it. And it kind of grayed out. If I come down to the bottom, same sort of thing happens. So if I select it, then I've trimmed my line. And you can trim multiple lines. You don't have to trim just one line and use the trim command for every one little line. Let me show you. Start the trim command again, press enter. Select this line to be a cutting line. Press the enter button again. And I can pick all of these. I can pick them one at a time, or I can use a crossing selection window. and that's the trim command. Now there are a few tricks that you can use with the trim command. First, I'm going to select my cutting line options. I'm going to select multiple lines here. In fact, I'm going to select all of these. Press return. And now you have different options here. You have your fence or your crossing options. So if I pick my fence, I can tell it to delete whatever passes through that line, and it trims just that part. Crossing works the same way. If I pick edge, I can extend or no extend. You can see here it's just going to pick the edge. On the extend option there, if you pick no, then the cutting edge line must pass through the objects that you want to trim. Now let's start the trim command again. I'm going to select this circle on the outside here as my trimming cutting line. Press return. Now let's say I want to trim some things I have and say, oh, wait a minute, I need this line to extend to the circle. Hold down the shift key, select the line, select the other line, and then it extends it. So that's how you turn the trim command into an extend command. Now let's look at the extend command. If I come up here to the ribbon, I find the extend command here, and it works very similarly. I select my extension line or the line that my objects will be extended to. Press return. You see here, I can't extend a circle onto itself. But what I can do is type in extend or EX for the command, and I can pick a line that's far away. I'm going to select that line, press enter, and then scroll back down here and pick on all of these lines. You can pick them again one at a time or with a selection set. This line I didn't pick. So you see it works very similarly to the trim command. And if I start the extend command again, select my circle. So now I've selected this for my extension line. And if I hold down the shift key and I highlight these lines, my extend command turns into a trim command. So you might be asking, why would I want to use an extend as a trim or a trim as an extend? Let me show you. I'm going to erase those just to get them out of the way. I'm going to start the trim command. I'm going to select all of these lines and circles. Press return. Now I'm going to trim some things away. So now I have a series of trims and extends. So I can use a lot of these commands in the exact same way as I did before, and I can trim them or I can extend them depending on what I need to do. So you can make some very fancy things with just one command, and it saves time. So I'm able to extend and trim by manipulating. Just as the trim and extend commands work very similarly to each other, if not virtually identical, the fillet and chamfer commands are also similar. Now the fillet command creates a tangent arc between two lines, and a chamfer creates an angled line between two lines, and the processes are very similar. You start the command, you define the arc radius, or the fillet in that case, or in the case of a chamfer, you define the distances for where the chamfer line goes. Either command is also very useful for quickly extending and or trimming two lines at a corner or vertice. So let's look at an example file. Open up the chamfer fillet examples drawing file. Here I have a series of different lines, one that's a square with rounded corners, and a couple of different lines that need to be trimmed, extended, etc. So to start the fillet command, just type in the word fillet. Or you can press in the letter F. Now the fillet command is also found in the ribbon. Go to the Home tab, go to the Modify panel, go right here. This is the fillet command. If you click on this flyout, you have the fillet and you have the chamfer. They work very similarly. So we're going to start with the fillet command. Type in the letter F, press enter. Now we need to define the radius. Type in the letter R, press enter, and you have to type in your value. I'm going to use a value of 2. So I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to click that first line and then click the second line. You'll see here it'll give you a little preview of what it's going to look like when you're finished. And that's the fillet command. It's very simple to use. Now the chamfer command works very similarly. Type in CHA for chamfer, or you can find it on the ribbon right here. And you enter in the distances for your lines. So if I pick the number 2, and then I enter in number 2 again, press enter. Now I pick my first line and my second line, and you can see there's my preview. Puts a little notch in the corner. So if I start the chamfer command again, for my distance, let's say my first one is 2, then my second one is 5. Press enter, selecting this line, then I select this line. Now you'll see here that the distance it moved for this line was 2 units. That's my first distance. And then my second one was 3. Now that distance, which one's going to be 2, which one's going to be 3? Well, you have 2 numbers. So the first number goes with the first line you pick, and the second number goes with the second line you pick. So if I undo this, type in chamfer. For my distances, let's say I type in the same way again, 2 and 5. And if I pick this line first, it'll have the shorter distance. And this one will be the longer distance. So it just depends on what you need and what you want to do. And make sure you get that order correct. And when you fillet or chamfer, lines can abut or go past or not even touch each other. So if I type in F for fillet, I'm going to give it a radius of 2. You see these 2 lines here intersect each other. They cross. Well, that's okay. Pick here. And I pick there, and it fillets it no problem. Start the fillet command again, and when you do, use the fillet command again, it will default back to the last radius that you entered in. So I'm still using the same 2-unit radius. So this line stops up here, or it abuts up to this other line. If I pick up here, it'll put my radius on the top. If I pick down here, it'll go towards the bottom. Now these 2 lines don't even touch each other at all. If I start the fillet command again, I pick this line, and I pick this line, you can see here it extends out the line and then makes the fillet where they would intersect. Same way with this line here and this line, it extends the one line that it needs to and trims the other and then inserts the radius. Chamfer works the exact same way. So if I set my distance at 2 and 2, I can pick here and here, here and here, and so on. Now, there could be a case where you don't want to put in a fillet or a radius, but you just want to sort of trim both lines together. Now you can do that, and you can do that with either command, and you do it the exact same way. So if I type in chamfer, CHA, D for distance, and I type in 0 and 0 for both of them, that's exactly what it's going to do, make a chamfer of 0. And it just trims up and extends the lines up exactly the way I want. If I start the fillet command, tell it a radius of 0, press return, pick my first line and my second line, and it goes to it. Now this right here is a polyline. I can make a fillet of a polyline. Select my objects, and it changes it. And it's still a polyline. Chamfer will do the same thing. Now here's another little trick for the fillet command, and it also works for the chamfer command. So let's say I have a fillet and it has a radius of 2. And I'll show you. Gives us a radius of 2. Well, let's say I need to create a corner for that. I can start the fillet command, and I showed you if I set the radius to 0, it will make it a radius of 0. Well, I don't want to do that because I want to keep making other fillets for the same radius, and I don't want to change what I'm doing. So if I hold down the Shift key and then I pick these 2 lines, it'll create a fillet of One of the reasons that we use CAD now instead of the drawing board is that the software can automatically create repetitive line work for us. The array command is one such command. Given one set of objects, it will recreate those objects in a grid of your defining. Let's open up a file and look at the array example drawing file. In this example, we want to create a conference room display filled with chairs that are evenly spaced in rows and columns. So if we zoom in here, here's a chair that we have already drawn for us, and I want to fill it in with columns and rows of chairs. Now we could create construction lines. I could start off very quickly here, drawing some different lines, and then copying them over and over again, and I'd have to make sure they were right and correct, and I would do a lot of different work when I can get one command, the array command, to do all of that for me, and I don't have those extra lines in there. So we're going to use the array command. Type in the word array, or just AR, or you can go to the Home tab on the ribbon, go to the Modify panel, and go to the array command. This is the rectangular array. Now there are 3 different array commands, and we're going to take a look at all of them. Each one will create an array, but in different ways. We're going to look at the rectangular array. So start the command. Now from here, the array command will be very visual, and it will help us along as we go. So select the chair, and you can pick one object to array, or you can pick a multitude of objects. It just depends on what you want to do. Press enter. Once we press enter, it will automatically generate an array of objects for us. And it gives us some grip edits that we can work with, or we have this contextual ribbon. A contextual ribbon comes into play only during specific moments when the context is right. That's why it's called a contextual ribbon. And this is one such ribbon, the array creation ribbon. You will also see this ribbon come up when you want to edit your array. So right here, it tells us the type of array. Oh, and on a note, if you type in the command array, you have an option to pick which type of array you want to use. So you may have had that as a step. Here we define the number of columns, the number of rows, and how many levels. You can also grip edit some of these options if you'd like. Let's say we want to change this from 4 columns to 6. Type in the number, and then just pick somewhere else on the screen, and it will automatically enter in 6 columns. Now, how many rows should we have? Let's try 6. Now we can see that we have 1 too many rows. Type in 5, and then there it goes. I see how quick and easy that was. Now, once you press enter, your array has been complete. Now, you'll notice this is an associated array. That means they're kind of together as one object, though they're all separate. Now, I can grip edit any of these at any time now. Now, if I click on here, I can stretch it to the right to add more columns, or if I move to the left, it will remove some of the columns. Same way if I go up to the top, it will add or remove rows. So it's very quick and very easy to edit. If I click on these arrowheads, that stretches out the whole distance, that adds that same thing. Same way on the top, this is only adding rows. This one will add columns, this one will add rows. This button will add rows or columns. If I click on this box here in the bottom left, it just moves them around as one unit. If I turn off my ortho, I can kind of center these right in the middle here as much as I'd like. Now if I click on these arrowheads, this changes the space between the columns, so they're spaced further apart. In the same way, this arrow changes the space between the rows. Now I can make my changes very quick. There's a second type of array that's called polar array. This function will array objects based on polar coordinates. That means you can copy objects along a defined radius and at specific angles. So let's open up the array example file. In this exercise, we want to arrange these chairs in a circle around this table. Now we'll be able to put in 4, 5, or 6 chairs, and we also want them to rotate accordingly so that the chair is actually facing the table. If we use the rectangular array, they would all be facing the same way, and we'd have a whole bunch of them, and they wouldn't be radial, meaning that they wouldn't be centered about the center of this circle. So the array polar command does a lot of different things for us. Now if you type in array or AR for the array command, you start off by selecting your object. And then it asks you if you want to perform a rectangular, path, or polar. I'm going to select polar. On the other hand, if you go up to the ribbon, go to the Home tab, then go to the array command here on the Modify panel, click the flyout. You can go directly to a polar array command by selecting that option. So let's pick the chair, press return, and now we have to specify the center point of the array. That's going to be the center of this circle right here. And you can see, boom, it just pops them right in there for us. Now, the polar array works almost identically to the rectangular array. You get a contextual array ribbon called the array creation, and you have all these other options available to you. You also have grip edits that you can change the angle with. You can also change that length right here. Once you do that, you can change the number of chairs or objects that will be arrayed in that area. So if I pick this here and I stretch it enough, it'll go and keep everything really close, really tight, or 360 degrees. Of course, all of these controls are up here and available to you. So I can control the number of items. Let's say it's 5. I can control either the angle between them or the fill angle total, whichever one I would like. So if I say this needs to be 180 degrees, and there are 5 of them, and they're going to be 45 degrees apart. Or I can go to 360 degrees, back the way I had it. And I can change this number here. Say I just pick randomly 56. It'll change the fill number for you automatically. So it just depends on what you want to do. Now you can change the number of rows. So let's say I need 2 sets of chairs. If I type in 2, it will give me 2 chairs. And all of the items are going to come out radially. Now levels is for a 3-dimensional polar array. So this will stack chairs on top of chairs. In this case, I only want the 1 row though. Now I do have a few options here. I can change the direction. I can rotate the items or not. This way the chairs, as you can see, are all facing the exact same direction. Well, I want them to all face the chair, so I'm going to leave that on. I can change my base point this way if I'd like, and this makes it associative. If I turn that off, then I won't be able to edit the chairs as a group later on. Once I change this, it shows how far away my chairs are from the center of my base point option. I'm going to undo all that and start all over. If I go to my polar array again, select my chair, press enter, select the center of my table, and I get this all right here. So it's actually very simple to do and very quick, as you can see. Now, if you change your base point, that's going to redefine where the location of the grips are going to. Well, there's a third type of array, and that's called the path array. This tool will array objects along a given pathway. That means you can copy the objects along a defined line, polyline, spline, or other shape. Let's open up our array example file. Now let's say that we want to plant bushes along the outside of this movie house. We have 20 ordered, so we need to plant them all equally spaced. Now the plants need to be planted 60 inches away from the foundation of the building. So we're going to offset the foundation 60 units. So I'm going to select the foundation and offset them there. So now we have just created a path for us to array along. Now I'm going to start the array command. I can type in array. I can type in AR, or I can go to the Home tab on the Modify panel and select Path Array. Now if you type in the command, press return, that's array, and you use the array command to start either the rectangle, polar, or path array. Then you select your object first. I'm going to pick this plant, press return, and now I'm going to tell it what type of array I want to use. And in this case, it's going to be the path. Once you've done that, you select your path, and it automatically generates your objects along that pathway. Very fast and very simple. Now remember, we have a few criteria. One was that they were 60 inches away, which we took care of with offsetting that foundation line by 60 inches. The other one is that we only have 20 of these. So we have to come up to the number of items, click on this box to activate that item, and tell it 20, and then click somewhere else. So now it will automatically put in 20 objects. Now we have a few options. We can tell it to align the items, give it a specific direction, or we can tell it to divide it or measure it. Now, what we want to do in this case, if we turn that alignment off, they're all going to look the exact same direction. They all look the same way. With the align on, they rotate as the line or the path rotates. That just depends on what you're going to want to use. Now, the direction controls whether you maintain a Z direction for the items. That will happen with a 3D polar path. In this case, it's 2D, so it really doesn't matter what we do. Now here, with the measure option, we can tell it to divide, which will divide up a total number of items across the total of the path, which is exactly what we want to do in this case. Or you can measure. Now, the measure method will put a specific space between each item. So in this case, between, I can tell it 100, and it will put my 20 items in here at 100 units apart. But that's not what we want to do. We want to put 20 bushes all the way around, and there we go. So once you're finished, you just click Close Array, and you are done. Now you can delete this pathway if you'd like. That will not affect your current array. I'm going to leave it in for the rest of the exercise. Now when I select the array, it's an associate array, so I can come in here and I can make the changes that I want. I can add rows to it, change the distance between those, or I can change it by total. There's one more array tool that I want to talk to you about, and that is the copy array. It's kind of hidden, but it's there. And the copy array tool is actually in the copy command and not an array command. It allows you to create a linear, non-associative array on the fly. That means that you can really just copy your objects many times in a straight line. Let's open up an example file. Let's open up the array example file. So let's zoom into this chair. It's very simple to use, actually. Start the copy command, type in CP or type in the word copy or go up to your ribbon, press enter, select your object, press enter, pick your base point, and now type in the letter A. You can see it's an option on the command line. This will put it in array mode. Now type in the number of times that you want to copy the object. Let's say 5. As you can see here, I'm going to zoom out. I have 5 objects that are being copied. Now it kind of works like the polar array. It's only making one line or one linear copy of the objects. Now I can pick the second point to determine the angle and spacing. I just click somewhere, or you can type in the distance if you'd want, and then enter in the angle. So let's say I want them at a 45-degree angle, and I want them to be about 50 units apart. This works kind of like the line command. So type in the number 50, press tab, and I type in 45 degrees. Press return. And now I'm still in the copy command, and I made all of those copies very quickly. So if you know your distance of separation and the angle that you want, and you only need one line of your object, this is a very quick and easy thing to do. I'll use this copy command a lot of times when I'm laying out a parking lot. Where I'm at, the city code calls for parking lots to be 9 foot wide. And if I know that I need 10 parking spaces right in a row in a line, which they typically are, I can just draw the first line, use this copy array command, and evenly space them out 9 feet and make 10 of them. And I can do that very quickly, and it's very useful. Now you can also change this to work in fit mode. This mode lets you pick the start and end points of the array and sort of fills in the blank. So if I start the array option again, I type in AR for array while I'm in here, and let's say I want 5 items again. And now instead of typing in the distance, I just tell it to fit. If I press the F button, then press enter, now I'm going to the end. And then I just pick my spot. Right click, press enter or escape to get out of there. And that's the copy array command that can be very useful. It's very limited in what it can do, but sometimes that's all you need to do. In this chapter, we've focused a lot on editing objects. Every object has properties like color, line type, length, layer, and a lot more. Different object types have different properties. One way to edit or manage those traits or properties is through the Properties Manager palette. We've talked about palettes in earlier sections, and we've used them a bit from time to time. But I want to take a closer look at this one because you can use the Properties palette in many cases to edit your drawing. Let's open up an example file. Let's look at the Architectural Annotation Scaling and Multi-Leaders drawing file. And we have a lot of different types of objects in here. And let's open up the Properties palette. Now it's real easy to do. Press down the Control key and the number 1 at the same time. Now a palette, if you left click on it on the top here and drag it around, you can reposition it. Once it's pulled out of the dock like that was, if you click on this bar, left click and hold, you can move it around. You can also stretch it so that it's taller or wider. Just depends on what you want it to do. If you click on this little button here, that'll auto hide it. And when you mouse over on it, it'll pop up. This little button here gives you different properties that will allow you to move it, to dock it left or right and anchor it, set up some transparency, etc. I typically leave it the way it is, and I typically leave it docked here on the left. So right now I have nothing selected because it says no selection, so I know this. Plus I know that I haven't selected anything either. But when I pick something like this object here, it'll tell me what it is. It tells me it's a multi-leader object. And then it gives me general information. That tells me the color, the layer, the line type, etc. Then after the general box, and you have a little scroll bar here you can left click on and drag up and down, goes the miscellaneous section. And that just gives you some overall scale items and some bit of information. And then it gets more specific. What I mean by more specific is that it has object-specific information in it. Like for the leader and for the text. It tells you the context, it tells you the leader types, etc. If I scroll all the way down, I can get to even more information on my object. Now the really cool thing about the Properties palette is that I can make changes to my selected objects. Right now I have this text selected and its color is set to by layer, but I can change it, as you can see here, to different colors just through the Properties palette. I can also change some of the other options on this. I can change that from a straight leader type to a spline. I can even change the color of the spline. And when I unselect it, I can't make the changes to it anymore, of course. And the other cool thing about the Properties palette is that if I select multiple objects, it will tell you how many objects and what type that you have selected. And I can make these changes to all of them all at the same time. Now, if you have multiple objects selected that are different types of objects, it will give you just a little bit of information on here, and it will only look at the types of information that they all share. And typically that's going to be what's in the general section. So I can change the color of everything all at the same time. I can change their layers, I can change their line type, or their line type scale. Now, if I have everything selected and I want to look at a specific type of object, I can click on this arrow here and it will list how many different types of objects I have of those specific types of objects. So if I want to take a look at my rotated dimension that I have selected, I can. I select it, just that one option, and I make the changes to it. And only that one object type will be changed. I can go to my lines and I can change the colors of my lines right there, just like that. So you can see you can make a lot of different changes to your objects through the properties palette. I always leave this open all the time on my day-to-day working with AutoCAD because I can do so much with it so easily and so quickly, and it provides a lot of information to me. For example, if I select this line, just that line, it tells me my general information. If I scroll down, it also gives me my length. It tells me what angle it's drawn at, and I can get the coordinates for my starting and end coordinates for my points. If I have a closed object or a hatch pattern or a polyline, polygon, etc., it will also give me the area of that object. In this chapter, we covered the tools in AutoCAD that allows us to edit our drawings. So let's use these tools now to clean up the chapter project where we created that landscaping project. So let's go and open that up. And I'm going to do a save as. Put this in the proper folder for us so that you have a starting example of what we need to work with. So first of all, what we're going to do is erase some of these points that we've inserted. We don't want them showing up as dots or crosshairs in this case in our drawing. So let's open up the properties palette to help us out. I'm going to dock it here on the left. That's going to help us out quite a bit. So I'm going to select everything here with my selection window. Now all I want are the points. So I'm going to use my properties palette quick select tool. So I use my current selection and I want just the points. And then set it to equals by layer, and I want to include them in my new selection set. So I click OK. That filtered out everything else except for the points. And now I'm going to erase them. And my points are gone. Now let's move over to our little pond. Now this part's going to get a little tricky. What we're going to do is arrange all of these hexagon-shaped stepping stone shapes so that they're neatly arranged and equally spaced. Now we have an ellipse here, and when we use an ellipse to create a pathway, AutoCAD often does weird things. It doesn't really know what to do with an ellipse when you use the array command, the path array. So let's say we offset this by 3 units. What we'll need to do is break it. Use the break command. Select a point here, and then just select another point here. Just a little bit of a break. Now we also need to get rid of all of these other objects here, all of these other hexagons. So we're going to use the same technique that we did with our points. Select everything with the crossing window, go to your quick select, and then select polylines. All the other settings should be good. Click OK. And we do want to keep one of them. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key while I select one of them so that it unselects everything, and then erase the others. Now let's move this hexagon shape. Grab it from the midpoint of the top here and click it onto the end point right there. Now I'm going to break this ellipse a little bit more, about right there to the end, to give a good little distance away. Now we can adjust this later on if we need to. Okay, so now we're about set. Sometimes though, when you break an ellipse, it does strange things to it. So let's make sure it's what we need it to be. It cut it off right there. It broke it at that quadrant point. And that's not what we want to do. It also converted it to a spline. We need this to be one path. So there's what we're going to do. We're going to use polyedit, p-edit. Type in PE, press return. Now, here's a little tip. If you type in the letter M before you get started, Press Enter. This will allow you to select multiple objects all in once. So I select them, everything I need, press Enter, type in Y for yes. I do want to convert them to polylines. 10 is a great option for that setting, and then click Join. Press Enter again. Now we have one polyline. Now you can see what it's done here is it's broken it up into all of these little segments. So that's okay. Just don't explode that or else you'll have a whole bunch of little bitty lines. So now we're ready. So if we come up here and go to the Path Array option, select our hexagon, press Enter, select our broken ellipse as our pathway. So we have a nice little pathway here. Works fantastically. And I like the way it looks, so I'm just going to really leave it the way it is. Right now it's set up to have a distance of 3 units in between. Now what we can do is change a couple of things, like align the items. This way it's just keeping them rotated the exact same way. I like them to slightly rotate as they go around. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to close array, and there we go, we have our pathway. Now select our spline and erase that. Now let's open up the wall where the door is right here so that we can walk through it. Let's use the trim command. Type in the word trim, press Enter, and let's just select all of these items. Press return, click this button right here, and you see the little preview, lets you know that's what's going away. Now we had selected more than what we needed to here, but a lot of times it's okay to select more items like we did there just because it's so much quicker to do this and then trim, as opposed to coming up here, selecting one item and then another item. And a lot of times it can just take longer, even if it only saves you 1 or 2 seconds. If you're doing a command or an activity every 20 or 30 seconds, so you're doing, 2 or 3 things every minute, maybe even more than that, and you can shave a second off of everything you do, that adds up to a lot of time. So you get done quickly. And that's the point here. Now let's go to the planting area. Let's go back over here. Now let's erase these circles. It's easy enough here to grab them all. So we're going to select them and then click Erase. Let's also clean up this area here. Let's make it rounded. Let's use the Fillet command. Let's use a radius of 10. Let's select some of these corners, and let's just keep doing that until we get nice rounded corners on everything. And if you can't, like right here, it gives you a little bitty glyph that says, no, it's too big. That's okay. Let's select something else and let's see. Now we can't do that. That radius is too big. So we'll go over here and we'll come back later and make a smaller radius for that one. Now the preview feature is very nice because it gives you a real good look of what it's going to look like. Go really small with a radius of 1. There we go. Now one thing that we could do, if I undo this, is to just grip edit that. Stretch it back down this way. And now do a fillet radius of 10. And you may need to go back and clean up some of your other spots too. Just do a little bit of grip editing like that, and that rounds it up much better. Now let's give this a little bit of thickness. Use the offset command of 1, select it, put it on the inside. That gives us a little bit of a planting wall. Now let's draw a circle. Let's make it radius of 2. Let's draw another circle. Starting at the center, use your center O snap, put it at about right here, which will be about 4 units. Draw another circle, type in NEA, and just snap it into there. And let's make this circle radius 0.5. Now come up here to our polar array. Select this circle, press Enter, type in CEN for our center O snap, and we're going to put little bitty circles all over it that way. Right now we have 6 items. Let's change that to 8. That looks pretty good. Type in E to erase. Erase that circle. So what we have here now is a larger bush with some smaller plants underneath it. Let's use the copy command. Select this array and that circle, right click, just pick somewhere around there, and let's put in several of these. Just put them in different spots. And that looks good. So we're going to have a few bushes with several plantings around it so that it looks more developed. So here we go. We have edited our drawing. We've trimmed up the doorway here to come into our building. And we can even trim up this right here. Use the trim command, select these two lines and click that. So now this is one concrete pad. We cleaned up our pond with our stones and we cleaned up our planting area. So now you've seen how to create a drawing, and now we've seen how to go back and edit that drawing to make improvements to it.